You've just finished a gorgeous fantasy map. You've spent hours doing it, tracing all the various coastlines, making sure the islands look good, going through the mountain ranges and shading everything, placing the nations and the kingdoms and the capital cities. Maybe it's for a game that you're running, maybe it's for a novel that you're writing, maybe it's just for fun. And then the time comes, the moment arrives, and you put it down on the table in front of your players. And what's the first thing they do? They pick it up and they turn it sideways, and then they turn it upside down, and then one of them says, wait, where's the capital city? And just like that, the moment is gone. The immersion slips. So that is where the 10-second rule comes in. Hello adventurers, and welcome back to the Red Quills. My name is Ryan, and today we'll be going over one of my most firmly held beliefs in making a map practical and usable. One of the most easily remembered rules that I can give you about how to make your maps, and that is the 10-second rule. It's a simple test, but it fixes any manner of map design problems. It's easily applicable to whatever you're doing, whether you've got a map of a sleepy little village, a capital city, a nation, or a whole world. It's easy to apply and it's easy to remember. So in this video, I'm going to go over what that is, how you can apply it to your own maps, and how you can create maps in the future, keeping it in mind. The 10-second rule is this: that a player or a reader picking up the map should be able to find any point of interest, whether it's a city or a dungeon or a kingdom, within 10 seconds of picking it up. That's it. 10 seconds. And if your map can't do that, then it's not just failing aesthetically, it's failing functionally. And this isn't just for world maps or nation maps, this is for anything. It has to be usable quickly and easily. There are any number of maps out there that are aesthetic as you can possibly make them. No matter what style you're working, whether it's hand-drawn or digitally rendered, if it's not readable, it's not a map. It can be beautiful, it can be amazing, it can be over the top, but it's not a map. Because clarity matters. Using a map in the middle of a story is about being able to reference where you are very quickly, particularly in role-playing games, but not only in role-playing games. If you're reading a novel, you're immersed in the story. If you flip back to the front of the book and try to find the point of interest that your heroes are currently wading their way through, and it takes you 10 minutes to do so, then you've lost the immersion of the story. And it's the same in any role-playing game. If your players need to know how to get from point A to point B, they need to find point A and point B. And if they spend 20 minutes arguing about where that is and how the best route can be found on the map, then you've lost that immersion, that urgency, that intention. So remember, the 10-second rule isn't about being flashy. It's about being functional, usable, intuitive. It's not about being pretty, it's about being useful. So why is this rule so important? Why is it so formative? Because maps are tools. They serve a distinct purpose. Even the most ornate, most illustrated, most corner of the scroll map serves a distinct purpose in your campaign. If it takes a rogue squinting at the map for 30 seconds to figure out where the point of interest is, then you've lost that tension. The pacing stutters, the story stalls, you've lost your momentum. None of it works if the players can't find what they're looking for. And you might hear them say things like, wait, is this dot a village or a mountain? Which way is north on the map again? Where was the ferry parked? And the problem isn't necessarily the players. It could just be the map. A confusing map breaks immersion faster than a bad accent. It takes what should be a high tension moment, finding the black spire rising on the horizon, into an argument about labels and orientation. It also costs you as a world builder. If your players can't read the map, then you can't guide them on the journey. You can't plant the seeds for what's to be found later on, because if they can't read the map, they can't find the seeds, they can't follow the trail that you lead them down. You lose the mystery, you lose the purpose, you lose the subtle world building. On the other hand, a good map is clear and functional. It allows your players to make intentional choices. It allows them to follow what you're doing, plan for the future, and become immersed in the world. Let's look at how this plays out in practice. So imagine that I'm making a fantasy region map. It's meant for players in a campaign, but it could just as easily be the front of a novel or a world wiki. Let's go through 3 versions of the same basic map and see how they stack up. Because version 1 is the messy map. This one's got a nice line work, but the layout's cluttered. There are forests and rivers everywhere, there's no labels, maybe there are a few, but they're tiny, hidden in the curls of text. You can't tell which town is the capital, the compass roses weirdly in the middle of the sea. The map fails the 10-second rule because the eye has nowhere to land. It's all noise. Version 2 is the overloaded map. Now we've added labels, but there's way too many. Every village, every road, every landmark is labeled. They're all the same size and style. There's no visual hierarchy, so nothing stands out. It's better, but you still can't find the important stuff quickly. Everything looks equally important, so nothing is. Version 3 is the functional map. You settle on a hierarchical style. The capital has a larger label and a unique icon. Other major cities are labeled clearly, but in a smaller type. Roads create a visual flow, colors create contrast, there's white space around the key regions, and the icons are used consistently. And now when someone looks at the map, their eye is drawn to the specific points. You can find the capital in under 5 seconds if you're trying, because you can find the area, and then the location, and then the label. It's not just about where things are. It's about how quickly your eye can find them. So design things to be easily contrasted to other things. Typeface, size of lettering, colors, all of those things can add to the different variations in your map. Because maps aren't just pictures, they are distinctive languages in their own rights. They have symbols, they have iconography, they have these sort of visual codes that we pick up over time. So how do you actually make a map past the 10-second rule? Here are the major tips and tricks that I use. You can follow them along and add them to your own maps. I'm going to put them in a list on the side, and there's going to be a downloadable through the link in the description below. So the first one is label hierarchy. As it turns out, not all labels are created equally. They have to be distinctive according to what you're creating. More important labels, easier, larger to read. Smaller labels, more distinctive. You need to be able to narrow down where you're looking at. You want to look at size, font weight, and style. If your players have to read every label in order to find the one that they're looking for, you've lost them. Contrast is next, and it's something that I tend to experiment with a lot on my maps, but generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, think about what is light and what is dark. If it is light on dark or dark on light, then it should be easy to read. But if you put a black label directly onto a dark green forest, it's going to get lost. You need to be able to distinguish them easily. An easy way to do that, if you've got a digital version of your map, is convert it to black and white and see if you can still read the damn thing. Because if you can't, you've got problems. And the way you can deal with that is white space. Let the labels breathe, particularly on important points, so it draws the eye to a high contrast area. Leave a small gap around all labels, no matter what size, so that you can distinguish them from the background if you've got a very colored, complex map. Visual anchors are next. In practically every video where I talk about how to start a map, I say do the coastlines and the mountain ranges first, because they are the visual landmarks. When you're looking at a map and you're looking for a town on the sea, the first thing you'll look for is not the label, but the coastline. Make sure that both are easily distinguished, and other things as well, like large rivers or large forests. Enormous landmarks should be easy to find on the map visually. Don't break them up. Make them easily distinguishable. Consistency in your iconography is very important. You don't have to go professional with it. They don't need to be exactly the same copy and paste, but don't change the size or the style or the color of iconography too often. It needs to be easily legible. If you do need to make changes to distinguish between, say, the races that live in a particular town or the size population of the town, then you can make minor changes. Something small but noticeable to the eye. We are very, very good at picking up patterns. You don't need to over-explain on that point. And last of all, and this might be intuitive, but give them some path finding. Roads and rivers and natural lines, and our eyes love to follow the line. If you put roads and rivers on your map, it will naturally guide the eye where the players want to go. It's a simple trick, but it's particularly doable. I tend to use dotted or broken lines for my own roads. But if you want a particularly easy to follow map, then a single unbroken thin line for a road will do quite nicely. Because if your party can't find the evil wizard's evil tower, how will they defeat the evil wizard in the evil tower? And that's the map's fault. So let's talk about a few extra tips and how some maps can naturally pass the 10-second rule. Say, take a pictorial map, which I've done several times on the channel. They naturally pass the 10-second rule because if you've got a nice big drawing of a nice big castle sitting smack bang in the middle of the map, it's kind of difficult to miss. So it passes the 10-second rule. An isometric map also tends to do well because there are a lot of lines in the map and it tends to pull the eye towards the back of the map. It distinguishes between depth in background and foreground, and that makes it easy for the eye to translate and understand what's going on. But the maps that most often fail the 10-second rules are over-designed. You want to create a map that's nice to look at, that has this sort of immersive feel, but textured parchments, old-fashioned maps, scrolling on the outside, burn marks, stains. A lot of the time, especially if you add them digitally, you will lose a lot of the readability of the map. There's so much going on that's not relevant to what the map is doing that it becomes almost impossible to find what you're looking for. Don't over-design it. Simplicity is key. And here's something that map makers often need to hear. You'll need to prioritize and move things for clarity. If you're creating a map and you have a large city sitting on the delta of a river and several ruins around it, and you've got a large map of the world, you're going to want to stick 4 or 5 or 6 labels into one very small area of the world. And you can't. You just can't. You're going to have to be okay with that. You're going to have to choose one label or move things around or make an insert in the corner of your map. It's not a bad option to choose when you have one area of your world that's more complicated than the rest of it. The important point is remember to make the map consistently detailed all the way through. It will draw the eye if it's not, but that's no good if you can't actually read what's drawing your eye. So let's recap. The 10-second rule is not a law. It is a rule. It's a tool to apply to your maps to make them easier to use, easier to read. If you can find any given point on your map within 10 seconds, then your map passes. Nice and easy. You have created a functional tool for your world building and your immersion. It's not about rigid standards. It's about making sure that your work is doing the work, that your world pulls people into it, that you aren't losing effort and information along the way by trying to over-decorate or overcomplicate things. So here's an easy challenge. Find the map that you most often use and give it to someone else, someone who's not familiar with it. Set a timer for 10 seconds and ask them to find something not often looked for. It could be the capital city, it could be a ruin, it could be a mountain. If they can't find it within 10 seconds, you've got to do a bit more work. Maybe it's time for a redesign. Either way, making a new map is only going to help you. The effort is large if you're making a large map, but knowing more about your world, being able to sort through it, prioritizing what people are going to look for, knowing what you as a world builder and they as a traveler will both be looking for will only help with the symbiosis of storytelling and immersion. So I'd love to hear from you. What is the hardest thing to find on your maps? I know I've made my share of complicated maps on this channel and I don't use all of them, but it's good to know what your maps need to work on and what your maps are really good at. So if you want a checklist for the 10-second rules, things to help you in finding and creating and crafting a map that's going to pass the test, then you can find that in the description below. I have the necessary resources on my Patreon channel. It is a quick reference guide for clarity, so use it if you need to, but don't rely overly on it. If you can find what you're looking for in 10 seconds through other means, then that's great. But remember that a map is a practical tool first and an aesthetic one second. Thank you everyone who supports the channel. It's fantastic to be able to continue to make these videos. Check out my next week's video coming up. It's available early for members, but otherwise, let me know in the comments how your maps do, and I'll see you next week.